limits.
I don't believe you, Professor. Okay? You're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here. Okay? I've read some of your stuff. I think you'd be more intellectually honest if you just come out and say, I'm on the side of the bad guys here. I think we shouldn't give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back. You're trying to make it as hard as possible, aren't you?
We'll have to disagree on that point, Senator.
Nah. You ever heard the expression, watch what they do, not what they say?
Welcome back to American Mindset, the channel where we dive into the issues that matter most to freedom-loving Americans. Today, we're talking about a fiery exchange that went down between Senator John Kennedy and a professor during a Senate hearing. This hearing has been making waves, and for good reason. Let me tell you, folks, this is a masterclass in exposing the kind of bureaucratic nonsense that slows down our fight against real threats to our country. So let's watch the video.
In the ports of entry, but that's not your experience, is it?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kennedy?
The bad guys are using drones. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. And the federal government has the authority to fight back, does it not? But state, nobody disagrees with that statement? Sure, Professor.
I would say within limits, yes. Within constitutional limits.
Okay. Do any of you disagree with giving state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back?
Again, within constitutional limits.
Okay. Tell me what your constitutional concerns are, Professor.
So I have three primary concerns. The first has to do with the Fourth Amendment and the conditions under which a warrant is required and a general warrant is forbidden by the Fourth Amendment. So in this particular case, it's important.
Professor, before you give me one of your lectures, are you saying that we should require state and local law enforcement to get a warrant before they fight back?
It depends on the condition. So in an exigent circumstance or something along the border.
I'm aware of the exceptions to the warrant requirement. But you, generally speaking, you want to require them to get a warrant.
Only for the search of a device or the seizure of property. There are also due process implications of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You started to mention another one of your objections.
First Amendment.
First Amendment. Okay. Any others?
Yeah, I also have a state rights, a 10th Amendment concern here, which is that states own the airspace adjacent to the land within their state that's not federally owned, and the current federal provisions don't recognize state sovereignty in that way.
So you want to give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back, but you want to list a whole lot of conditions. Is that a fair assessment?
Not a whole lot, but some. There needs to be a nexus to the facility. It can't be any drone anywhere in America if you're concerned about a particular facility, but right now it's too broad. There have to be acknowledgments of First Amendment concerns. So for instance, limiting the covered facilities to the experience and logic test with which the courts use for right of public access, or prohibiting media bans across the board, or setting a time limit before and after special events so they don't extend extensively. This is what a number of state measures already do, and I'd like to see that at a federal level and apply to bring this within the constitutional limits.
Sounds like a lot of conditions to me.
No, not very many. As long as there's probable cause and the conditions are met, then absolutely you can.
Have you ever heard of a legislative practice called loving a bill to death?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when you take a bill and somebody says, I'm really for this bill. But then they add so many amendments and they screw it up so badly that the bill either becomes ineffective or doesn't pass. Is that a pretty accurate description?
Of the term?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're trying to love this to death, aren't you?
I disagree.
You're not really for giving law enforcement the power to fight back, are you?
I am in favor of giving law enforcement that power and respecting constitutional limits.
I don't believe you, Professor. Okay? You're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here. Okay? I've read some of your stuff. I think you'd be more intellectually honest if you just come out and say, I'm on the side of the bad guys here. I think we shouldn't give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back. You're trying to make it as hard as possible, aren't you?
We'll have to disagree on that point, Senator.
Nah. You know, you ever heard the expression, watch what they do, not what they say? I've watched what you've done. I know what you believe. Or you're on the FISA court?
I'm not on the court. No, I'm an amicus for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and the Court of Review.
Okay. Were you there when you guys issued all those bad warrants against Trump's people?
I can't discuss my work on the court,
Oh,
unfortunately.
it's top secret, right? I'd be on, you'd have to put me on the American people on double secret probation if you told them the truth, wouldn't you?
No. I can't discuss my matters that I've handled before the court. I can discuss the public ones where I've dealt with First Amendment concerns and the right to petition. I did an extensive history looking at that right
I'm
to
done,
petition.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. We're going to turn it over to Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
All right, let's start with the obvious. Senator Kennedy asked the most basic question. Are the bad guys using drones? And guess what? Everyone agrees. Even the professor can't deny it. So, we're all on the same page here, right? The bad guys are using drones, and it's a threat we need to address. But here's where the professor starts doing that classic academic shuffle, adding layers of constitutional concerns and red tape to what should be a straightforward solution. Now, I'm all for the Constitution. Heck, I defend it with my life. But what this professor is doing here is weaponizing the Constitution to make it harder for law enforcement to do their job. Fourth Amendment concerns? Sure, warrants are important. But Senator Kennedy is right. We already have exceptions for exigent circumstances. When a drone is being used by a cartel or a terrorist, do you really think law enforcement has time to go through a mountain of paperwork just to protect American lives? Come on. And this argument about state sovereignty over airspace. Look, I'm all for states' rights. But the professor is twisting the 10th Amendment here. He's not arguing for states to have more power. He's trying to complicate things so local law enforcement can't act against these threats. If anything, this is about empowering states and local authorities to defend their communities. Senator Kennedy gets it. The professor? Not so much. Now, this part is where Senator Kennedy really nails it. He talks about loving a bill to death. For those of you who don't know, that's when someone pretends to support a bill, but adds so many conditions and amendments that the bill becomes useless. And that's exactly what's happening here. The professor says he supports giving law enforcement the power to fight back, but then he piles on all these restrictions to make it impossible to actually do anything. It's like saying, sure, you can use a gun to defend yourself, but only if you fill out this form, wait 10 days, and make sure the bad guy agrees to the terms. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, this is where Senator Kennedy drops the hammer. He says, you're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here. And let me tell you, folks, that's the kind of grit we need in Washington. Kennedy sees right through this professor's act. He straight up tells him, be honest. You're not really for giving law enforcement the power to fight back, are you? And the professor? He dodges, deflects, and dances around the question. But Kennedy doesn't let him off the hook. That's what a real leader looks like. And then we get to the professor's role with the FISA court. Now, if you're like me, you probably have some strong feelings about how the FISA court has been used, or should I say abused, over the years. Kennedy brings up the bad warrants issued against Trump associates. And what does the professor do? He hides behind classified information. Folks, this is exactly why we need more transparency. The American people deserve to know what's going on behind closed doors, especially when it comes to something as serious as surveillance and our constitutional rights. Senator Kennedy absolutely nails it again when he says, watch what they do, not what they say. This professor can say he supports law enforcement all day long, but his actions tell a different story. He's putting up roadblock after roadblock, making it harder for the good guys to take down the bad guys. And let me tell you, folks, this is the exact kind of double talk that drives me crazy. We need accountability, not excuses. Here's the bottom line, folks. This isn't just about drones. This is about whether we're going to let bureaucrats and academics tie the hands of our law enforcement while the bad guys get free rein. Senator Kennedy is fighting for common sense. He's fighting for the safety of our communities. And this professor? He's more worried about putting up roadblocks than solving the problem. As patriots, We need to stand with leaders like Kennedy who aren't afraid to call out the nonsense and demand real solutions. So what do you think? Is Kennedy right to call out this professor? Or do you think the professor has a point? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to American Mindset for more no-nonsense takes on the issues that matter most to freedom-loving Americans. Until next time, stay strong, stay free, and God bless America.